Welcome to #GotMoney. I've invited Dale from Wealth Within, who is a seasoned stockbroker, but also runs a massive training institute here in Australia. Welcome, Dale. So, buddy, I wanted to kick off just with the obvious elephant in the room. We've started to see Australian stocks have been pretty volatile anyway, haven't they, over the last, 3 to 6 months. But there are now 13 million new cases of COVID, and we've seen a significant drop. Why does COVID have such control over our stock market?
I can nail it in one word: uncertainty. When you get uncertainty, what happens is you get a lot of volatility on the market, because it's like if I gave you the keys to the car and I said, oh, there's a couple of cars out there, here's some keys. One of them's got no brakes, but the other ones do. But just jump in and start driving. Would you drive the car that you got? It's because it's that uncertainty, and uncertainty creates fear. When you got fear, then you get volatility on the marketplaces. But you also get a lot of people in the mindset of the fear of missing out too. So you get that as well. So you get these people that we've seen since the March washout of the COVID-19. You've seen our markets jump 38%, but in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's gone about 2 or 3%. It's really been going sideways. And that is simply because of the uncertainty with new cases coming out. What are we going to do? Are we going to go back into lockdown? You and me are in Victoria, in Melbourne here. We're in lockdown again. Sydney's starting to think, oh, hang on a second, maybe we need to put better measures in at the moment because they're getting more cases. And I think from Australia's point of view, it's not a case of if it's going to be an outbreak in your state. It's just going to be when and how it's going to be managed. But I still think Australia is so much better placed than the US. The US is a basket case. It's really a basket case. Every Monday I do an interview with a gentleman over there called Jim Beach, and he runs the School for Startups radio. It's syndicated to like 25 stations. And we were chatting about this yesterday, which I'm releasing the video today. On our YouTube, channel, the Wealth Within TV channel on YouTube. And he was talking just about this. I mean, the US is moving into lockdown. There's so many more severe cases, and, the government or Trump, they're still saying to people to do things, go to school, go and do everything else. And it's that sort of blind, I don't know whether you call it stupidity or optimism, I'm not sure. But I mean, Trump's done some great things for the US, but right now, I don't think he's handling it very well at all, and his approval ratings are showing that. But I think here in Australia, we're so much better placed. We're going to have a much more softer landing, and economically, I think we'll do very, very well out of this because we can get a real good handle on coronavirus. But right now, uncertainty is driving the market, and that's where you're getting.
I guess the other side of that too is, why are we so connected to the United States? I mean, why? I mean, we've had every global financial crisis has always been, you can literally draw a line from Australia straight to the United States and say, they played badly and we're paying for it. So why are we still, as a country, why is our stock market, I mean, even their dollar has a hiccup, we pay the price for it. Why are we still, as an Australian, because we're our own marketplace, why are we so connected to them?
We never used to be, and for hundreds of years we weren't connected to them. But since the GFC, I've noticed a lot more of our market tracking with it. So in big moves, you're correct. Like with 1929, they had a meltdown in 1929, so did we. But we had a low in 1931. Their low was 1932. So, but what happens is probably the analogy I can use, if you have 2 tennis balls and you drop them at the same height, they both bounce together, but then they get out of sync and then they come back into sync. That's always been our relationship with the US, and the rest of the world's been the same. We're getting out of sync. Now, Australia has become a lot more aligned to Asian economies, but since the GFC, I've seen our market really track the US market. And probably the way I see it is that everything is shrinking. The global economy is shrinking, and we're seeing, and you would have seen this very, very much so, being in the media, journalism in Australia is shrinking big time because it's cheaper and easier just to get everything from the US, and lazy, great journalists have been made redundant, and all those sorts of things. I've seen some brilliant journalists that don't really have jobs. They're they're being freelancing, those sorts of things now. So I think it's laziness on behalf of Australia. I think that's part of it. And it's just easy just to follow the US, what they're doing. Is it better for Australia? No, it's not. I don't believe it is. But we do have much better laws around health and a whole range of other things. So, but right now we are following the US a bit.
That's terrible. Do you know what? I love the fact that we've got the ABC News and SBS, and I always go to them to get my information. I don't go elsewhere because you're right. The rhetoric is the rhetoric is the rhetoric. Used to be a day when I was a kid, you turn on the TV and the news would vary from station to station, and it's not like that anymore. It's like they're all singing from the same hymn book. And the problem with that is, you know, we almost feel like we're being played by a puppet master, and I certainly don't want to get my information from a puppet master. Are we not smart enough to see that and to address that as a country, as a nation?
Yeah, I think we are smart enough, but do we have the guts? You know,
That's a good question. Sorry, I shouldn't have said shit.
Well, I mean, you can get into the debate about our politicians back, you know, decades ago. You know, I don't think we've had a real politician in Australia who actually led the country since Howard. And, you know, nowadays people get into politics and they just follow the party line. They're not necessarily doing what's good for the people. They're doing what's good to get re-elected. And that's what it's like in the US. I mean, if you've got enough money, you will be president. That's no doubt about it. I mean, you only have to go and study US elections. Barack Obama fought his way into the presidency. And so studying that, and we're doing the same into Australia. It's not about being a community service and doing what's right. It's following the corporate, you know, whatever the corporate donations are coming in and following that line. And I think we need to get some real politicians with some real, you know, what's to stand up and actually drive what we need to be doing for the people, because increasingly I'm finding people are dissatisfied. They're not being heard by our government, and we're selling Australia off, and you can get into all of those different debates, and we could probably spend hours talking about politics.
We could. Oh, Jesus, I could go through that with a machete and I could talk about that till the cows come home. So our media is in trouble. We are connected irreverently to the United States. And the only way that we change that is we start electing in governments that actually, our own personal government, that care. We need a Jacinta Ardern. Jacinta, if you're not doing anything, we were just wondering if you could run Australia. Just putting it out there.
I think she's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, she's pretty good. She's pretty good. I found out that she's my English teacher's niece, so I feel quite connected. So I've got some other questions here for you. Why is Tesla's gone up 225%? Why? Unpick that for me, because they're like the holy grail and I can't quite get my head around it.
Yeah, every now and again you get one of those stocks that gets driven by rampant speculation, and so you do get it. In Australia, it's Afterpay.
Yes.
So you're getting these chat forums and these would-be warriors on the stock market going into the chat forum. And I call chat forums for stock market the blind leading the blind, because they're people who don't know what they're doing, talking up stocks, and then they all get onto one and they just push it, and then people miss out. And that's exactly what's happening on Tesla. And there's an app on phones, which I know some Australians, young millennials have, and it's called Robinhood. And they're all buying Tesla stocks because they've been sheep. And if you want to lead the market, then you can't be a sheep. You need to be somebody who's independent to be consistent. If you keep following everybody else, you will lose. And I see a lot of these people on that Robinhood platform, they're driving to a cliff, not even knowing the cliff's going to be there. And Tesla will actually collapse because it's going up on hot air at the moment. It's not sustainable. Tesla's inconsistent at making money. Yeah, it's selling a few more cars. Yeah, there's more interest from China in their SUV car and the Model S and the Model X, I think it is, that they've got more interest there. But it's not going up on solid fundamentals. It's not making lots of money. And as I said, you're seeing all this movement in their stock simply because of this Robinhood Act.
It's like the .comers. Do you remember everybody buying the .comers, like frenzied? I'd never seen anything like it. I had mates setting up .com companies left, right, and centre and getting backers for millions and millions of pounds, like millions. And then
Yeah.
within 5 minutes, it was a wash, and people
Yeah.
lost everything. They lost they bet the farm, they lost the farm. Um,
Yeah.
look,
Bitcoin as well.
yeah, they're just because it's nice to want to back it, but I don't see if I saw Tesla on the market and everyone driving one, fair play. If they were everywhere and there was a moderate priced car that everybody could purchase, fair play. But I don't see that when they're charging $200,000 for a car and only the top 0.00% can buy them. That doesn't seem like a really good viable model long term, does it?
Well, it's not. I mean, if you look at the largest car manufacturer in the world, the car manufacturer that makes more cars than anybody else, it's Toyota, right? And they absolutely slaughter Tesla on how many cars they actually make and sell. Absolutely slaughter them. And yet Tesla's worth more money than Toyota. How does that work?
It makes no sense.
Tesla doesn't make more money than Toyota, but it's worth more money. So the fundamentals aren't there to support Tesla. Here's another interesting fact for you. Tesla's about to tick over $20 billion in short sellers. So that will
What
make
does
it.
that mean?
What it means is that people are aware of what hedge funds are. Hedge funds actually are set up to trade the market bearish. So if a stock falls away, they'll be pushing it down and hoping it goes down so they make more money. So they're trading for the market to fall away or the stock to fall away. Last year, Tesla was one of the most short sold stocks on the market, yet it kept rising. And what happens when a short seller goes into a short position? What they actually do is they sell the share. So basically, in theory, the money that they sell the share goes into a holding account in case the share goes up. And so these people have gone and sold the share in their short position, but the more the share goes up, the more their position gets out of whack. So then they've got to buy the share back to cover it. And that's called a short squeeze, where all these short sellers have to cover their positions by buying the stock back, because eventually you've got to give it back to whoever owned it. And that's what's happening now with all those people on that Robinhood Act. But last year it was the most heavily shorted stock, and yet it rose very, very, very strongly. It pulled back a little bit around Christmas time, but since the March low, it's taken off like a rocket because of all these hedge funds. There's a few hedge funds closing up now because all of these people from Robinhood kept buying it. So they've got to close their positions out. So it snowballed for a little bit. That's what's pushed it up quite strongly over the last few weeks. They're going to run out. The hedge funds are going to stop closing out their positions. And then the people from Robinhood are going to end up not having any more money to put into Tesla. So therefore it's going to tip over, and that's where the cliff's going to happen.
Oh my God, and it's going to be a massive cliff, isn't it? I mean, oh,
There'll be blood on the street. Absolutely blood on. And I've seen it before, and you're right. During the tech boom bust, I saw so many people buying stocks that hadn't even traded, had no money, had no assets, but going through the roof. And biotechs, I saw that a lot. The Bitcoin boom. I had people, on the phone who were on a pension who'd used all their money and all their life savings to buy Bitcoin and had no idea what they were doing. Most of the people buying Bitcoin were under 35. They were sort of 20 to 30 to maybe to 35 buying it. And there's so many lost so much money. And I'm seeing that will happen again it'll happen with Tesla. And it's probably going to happen with Afterpay because that's been going up 100% in Australia just on news.
so Afterpay, Tesla. Now, there was something that I read today, and I just wanted to know if we had it here in Australia. During March in the United States, the US markets used a circuit breaker to discontinue panic selling, right? And apparently they used it 4 times. And I was really interested about that. Do we have something like that here in Australia? Do we have a circuit breaker?
Absolutely. Australia actually leads the world. The Australian Securities Exchange really does lead the world in technology and everything else. It's the only exchange in the world that's actually floated on itself. So that was an interesting thing. Australia went to electronic trading around 87. So when the 87 crash was happening, I think the top 20 stocks were traded electronically. And so we're very much leaders. I know the ASX are also very much into blockchain and making it a blockchain platform to really increase security, etc. But yeah, we always have circuit breakers. Brokers have them as well. Like as an institutional trader myself, with our fund that we run, I mean, obviously most of what I do is I teach people to trade, but our fund, we can't push money into it if we're going to move a market by more than 1 or 2%. The broker system will click in first. But then if you see a lot of brokers trading a lot on something, then the ASX system will click in as well, because it's there to protect you, to protect everyday Australians from something being manipulated, you know, or big fat fingers hitting buttons and having wrong zeros. So, which has happened before.
So what it does is, and this is what I read this morning, it actually stops you from trading for 15 minutes. So is ours 15 minutes like the US?
I think it is, yeah. I mean, the ASX can actually extend that because it gives them enough time to see what's going on, because ASIC are looking at the ASX all the time. They have teams of people making sure everything's fair. The ASX their role is to make sure it's a fair and equitable market for everybody, not just institutions, but for mums and dads and everybody else. So that's why they're always watching for insider trading, market manipulation. But does insider trading happen? Yes, it does. You know, does market manipulation happen? Yes, it does. It's really hard to catch. But they've got these triggers in for a short period of time so they can stop whatever it is, especially if it's computer generated high frequency type trading that can push through thousands of transactions quickly. So they stop it, see what's going on, make some phone calls to the brokers pushing those through and going, what's going on?
Yeah, are you dumping and why are you dumping? And if you're dumping, what do you know that we don't know and why are you doing it? Because that's unconscionable. Oh, actually, that's quite good. Thank you for that. Thank you for unpacking that for me. So I guess for me, and what we're all noticing now is news around Australia becoming cashless. And I really wanted to talk to you about that because I was reading this morning that Sweden itself is actually, they're leaders in this. And they've allowed their people to voluntarily take on being a cashless society. And it's said in the ABC News, one of the bulletins I was reading, that we're about 2 years away from that. I just wanted to understand from you, what are the implications to us if we take that route? Like, how do we change and how do we bury ourselves in that? Because it feels to me like, you know, I looked at what happened in Greece and all the money was in the banks and all of a sudden that entire economy collapsed and people could not get their money. They could not get money out of ATMs. In Sweden, they're closing down ATMs. What are some of the implications to us as Australia if we pick up that as a model?
Yeah, we've picked it up years ago. Like, we've been on a steady course to being cashless for a long time. I mean, you know, banks have been closing branches for 30, 40 years. ATMs have been slowly being pulled out all over the place. So we have been moving to that. I think what we've seen with COVID, because people not wanting to handle cash because of transmitting germs, that's just accelerated it, or the timeline for that to happen. Is it good or bad? There's a couple of arguments there. Is, you know, who does it affect the worst? You know, obviously elderly who struggle to get into, you know, the whole technology or understanding technology properly. They feel safe with cash. So that's one sort of group of people that would be negatively affected on it. But to me, it's partly, I haven't had cash in my wallet for so long, it's not funny. You know, my wife doesn't give me any cash to spend because I just spend it, you know. And I don't know about you, you're probably not old enough, but when I first started working in the bank, you know, when I was a young boy, 18, 19, my first paycheck was in a little brown envelope with cash. And I'd sit there at my desk and I'd say, okay, that much I got to pay for rent, and I've got to put this much for my other bills, and then I've got this much for my savings and my future, you know, my investments. And then this much goes in my wallet for me to spend. And when that ran out, I couldn't spend.
Yeah, that was it. That was done. And you never took credit. You never had a credit card. It was just, that was unheard of. Sorry, I'm showing my age now, aren't I? But you just didn't. But if there's a suggestion that if we go down to a cashless society, that, you know, that was recently they tried to change the laws. Last year, the federal government proposed laws to ban cash payments of $10,000 and more. And they were threatening jail sentences up for 2 years for people that didn't obey. That kind of feels very Big Brother, doesn't it?
Yeah.
you know, we're in COVID. We've connected everything to the Australian Taxation Office. We've got our job seekers and keepers and everybody out there where they're really making themselves financially visible to our government. We've got banks now that understand our entire workings intimately, as they should anyway, I guess. But what happens if we go down this path? What can be some of the implications for us? And I know what we're doing is we're surmising. I appreciate that. But, you know, you're in the money space, and I couldn't think of anyone else I'd rather unpick this with a little bit than you. What do you think will happen to us if we do this?
I think we're going to lose a lot more freedom, and I really do think we're going to lose a lot more freedom. There's a lot of negatives to having everything that you do known. And, you know, we have privacy issues with Facebook and your YouTubes and your Twitters and all your social media. They're all getting hacked, and there's constant hacking all over the place with our details. But having any corporation know my details of where I get my money from and where I spend it, I don't like that. You know, and then we're constantly getting bombarded every time we open up our phone or our PC. We're getting bombarded with ads to spend money. So to me, there's a few things. The government will know where you're spending every cent, and they'll be able to track it. So whilst I understand criminals are out there, and the whole idea of $10,000 is to, you know, to make sure they can understand where criminal activity is happening. And so I totally understand that. But the criminals are now on blockchain and using Bitcoin and everything else. So, because they can't be tracked, you know, and you know, so there are positives, you know, if you do lose cash, you can't get it back. So how do you lose the zeros and ones and etc. on your bank account? It's a little bit harder. But to me, that whole Big Brother watching is a negative to this. And probably one of the other bigger things is you're losing that connection with cash. And when you're talking to people of my age, having physically 10 or 20 or $50 in your wallet made you feel like you're okay. But walking around with a credit card, you're losing that tactile relationship with, I've actually spent an hour to get this. And that's what I'm seeing. And then you're getting all the growth of these buy now, pay later spaces, and everybody spending next week's paycheck and the next 4 weeks' paycheck. I see our society is getting poorer or broker. And we're seeing it at the moment is that I think the statistics are is 1 in 2 people are physically don't have any money. They run out of money before they run out of week. So because they're actually then using these buy now, pay later spaces to survive the week. And that's absolutely abhorrent to me. Like, that happened.
It's an impoverished state. You know, I interviewed the people from Money Magazine and various different money places, and they said to me, you know, that those institutions have been set up for people to fail. Because what you do, as soon as they fail, the interest that's paid is enormous. So all of that is just a fail. I guess from a stock market point of view, if we went cashless, do you think that would start impacting the cryptocurrency space? Can you see people kind of leaning towards that to get some freedom?
Oh, look, I do. And I really do think people are using the cryptocurrency space to be anonymous. You know, It's my money, I'll do that. But a lot of people don't understand the risks involved in a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. You know, I've got friends in the US who really understand this space, lawyers and everybody, and they tell me how dangerous it is in some places because there's thousands of cryptocurrencies. But there's a lot of people going into this space and not really understanding it. Will there be a world cryptocurrency? Absolutely. There will be at some stage. But you can't have a sovereign entity, a nation, not controlling its currency. It's just not feasible. Like the US government won't control its own dollar, or the Australian government can't control its own dollar. So you need that sort of space in there. But I think from a point of view of an individual is, to me, it's going to more cashless is making, as I said a minute ago, making us broker because we're losing that relationship. But we will look for other things. You know, we might use other things to hide money from the government, because one thing I know for sure with 100% certainty is corporate world will do whatever they want to suit them, and they'll push the government to give it to them. So corporate world, banks, I call them rapists in suits, because that's particularly what they actually do. They're very good at locking people into loans and everything else so that you're in chains for them for the whole of your life. And that's why I strongly push people to get into the stock market, invest, save money, buy property, those sorts of things, to give themselves freedom of choice. And This is what most people don't realize is the government wants you broke and they want you to be controlled. And they do that with the corporations and the financial services industry. So you don't have much money, so you're easily controlled. But those who have choices, you can't control as much. You know, people that have freedoms, I can get up and move anywhere I like, anywhere in the world, anytime I like. And I can do a whole lot of things that the government won't control me. That was the decision I made when I was 18, 19, starting work. I said I didn't want to rely on the government in retirement, because when you do that, you get what you're given, not what you deserve.
You know, they
And
tried out that card, didn't they, here for the unemployed, and they monitored everything they spent. I mean, that's just unconscionable bloody behaviour. I could go on. That's another machete conversation for both of us. So are you trading? Are you trading with confidence, and where are you trading?
look, I'm very, very cautious at the moment with trading, and probably to give you an idea of what's happening in the world markets at the moment is the amount of retail trading is going up, and the amount of people like us, or like myself, fund managers, the big end of town, they're trading a lot less. And that's got to tell you something, and that's worldwide this is happening. And we're seeing, you only have to look at the ASIC's report into trading during COVID-19 during March and April, and there was 3.4 times the amount of new accounts being opened with brokers between March and April. The trading on leverage products such as foreign exchange and contracts for difference and stuff went through the absolute roof. I was chatting to a broker yesterday who's a big broker, and he said, you know, prior to COVID-19, we were doing about $50 million, I think, a day, he was saying. During COVID, we're doing $150 million a day of trades going through. So it's 300%. And most of that we're seeing as retail traders getting in, and you're seeing a lot of people saying good stocks at cheap prices. So they're going, I'm buying that. And so they're pushing all these stocks up, trying to make money, because everybody's at home being a day trader right now. So they've been watching some YouTube videos and going, yeah, I know how to trade. And they're just buying and selling, but they really don't realize the danger that they're actually taking with their money, because the big end of town are not trading. We've really pulled back. Like, we've got half a portfolio of stocks at the moment because we're just waiting. And if you said to me, is it possible for us to go back down to the March lows? I'd say, yes, it is very, very possible that we could do that. Will it happen? I don't know. Right now, we're technically still bullish, but it's not going to take much for us to turn bearish. And then it's not going to take much for a panic start selling to happen, especially if we get more outbreaks, more shutdowns. We might get another panic and go down below. And I remember when the March low was happening, I was saying, I'm thinking right now that we've probably had 80, maybe 90% of the fall. We might get a pull up and then another wave down. We haven't had the wave down yet. And history tells us we generally get it. Is this time going to be different? Possibly. Will it be different? Maybe. But could we be doing what's normal and going back down again? Yeah, we could be doing that as well. But in the end of the day, what I often say to traders and those inexperienced in the market is, it doesn't matter what the US is doing. It doesn't matter what the whole wide world's doing. Is what are you doing and what can you control? Because I can't control Scott Morrison. I can't control anybody in politics in Australia. I can't control the stock market. I can't control Trump or the US market. All I can control is, do I buy stock or sell it? That's it. So if I own shares, I just have an exit strategy on them. And if they fall, I can get out and put my money in the bank and it's safe. If the market goes up, I can buy stocks and ride the wave up. And so keep it that simple, because I find a lot of people get overwhelmed with all this amount of information coming through. Then they get to confusion going, do I get in? Do I get out? What do I do? How do I do this? Do I buy this? Do I buy that? And that confusion leads to this whole, they get frozen and they get paralysis analysis, basically.
Got a gorgeous client. He said, I'm going to go and see my financial planner, and my financial planner wants to get me into some stocks. I'm thinking about trading. And it's just like, mate, if Dale's not trading, don't trade. I mean, really, it's like, sometimes I talk to clients about them going and buying investment real estate on their own. And I'm like, it would be, I liken it to watching a YouTube video on giving yourselves a brain surgery and then just going ahead and doing it. And why would you do it? Why would you risk your financial welfare and your financial well-being for you and your family and for your future on doing something that you don't really understand. Dale's an expert. If Dale's not trading, stop trading. That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm very, very cautious. I'm buying a few things, selling a few things, but not doing a lot. But I'll tell you a story back in the tech boom. I had some, probably because of what I do, I was trading at this stage, but I was trading blue chip stocks, and I had a whole heap of friends that were trading all these biotechs, tech stocks, you name it. And they were buying and selling within 3 days. So they didn't have to settle, because back in those days, it was T+3, or buy, and then you had to settle within 3 days, or sell and settle within 3 days. So they were doing that, and I had so many people telling me I was an idiot, telling me you're not making as much money as you could be doing, and the list goes on. And the same thing happened in Bitcoin, the same thing's happening now. People are saying, you know, you should be in Afterpay, you should be doing that, and all these uneducated people come at you like a tidal wave. But if you stay to what you do, you'll know you'll get through it at the end. Well, what happened during that tech boom bust is all of those people that were hammering me, telling me I was an idiot, all went broke. They all owed money all over the place. They lost a whole heap of stuff. People lost houses. I had one guy that made $1 million in a year and lost it in 6 weeks. I had so many people that made $500,000 in a year, lost a lot of them. I had people talking to me that went to their mothers and borrowed all the money out of their mother's house that they could borrow, put that on the market, lost everything, lost their mother's houses. So they're huge numbers, and that's hugely terrible, because these people have had a cognitive bias. And what I mean by that is they were delusional. They thought they were better than what they were. They thought they knew. But if they want to measure themselves against somebody like myself or other experts on the marketplace, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would they put themselves? And people think they know the market. And I know a lot of these millennials trading with these apps think they know, because they've watched some YouTube videos, but they don't.
They don't.
And the thing is, they don't even know that they don't know. And that's the point. So they have this cognitive bias thinking that they're okay, but they know what they're doing, but they really don't. And I know for most of those people, I couldn't sit with them for a couple of hours or watch a video of them doing their job for a few hours and do their job properly. But they think they can do my job by watching a YouTube video.
Oh, it's just lunacy. It's absolute lunacy. I think people should be buying real estate right now. I've never known a greater space. We're getting people into properties that otherwise wouldn't realise home ownership.
I'm so excited about the real estate space. I'm excited about the stock market, but I'm really excited about over the next few years, I'm going to be buying a few properties.
Thank you, Dale. How do our listeners find you? And particularly for your training, because I think your training courses are amazing.
Yeah, they can go to our website, wealthwithin.com.au. If they want to get onto the website, they can buy my latest book, Accelerate Your Wealth, and really start to understand portfolios and how to get set up, how to buy, how to sell, manage their money. But they can also watch me on YouTube on Wealth Within TV. So just go to YouTube Wealth Within TV. I do a market wrap every single week on the Australian and US markets. So they can learn a lot.
Fantastic. Thank you, mate. All the best to you. Stay safe. Everyone, that's us from Got Money this week. Looking forward to hanging out with you next week. If you've missed any of the shows, please go to gmtv.com.au. Also our YouTube channel. We are here to help. So if you've got any questions for Dale, please send them through. He will certainly answer as much as he possibly can, as will any of our other guests. Take care, everyone. All the best.